So Gmail first.
Yeah, I was just about to introduce the show, so
Okay.
thanks a lot.
Oh wow, I didn't. You give no confirmation before we start. You just go straight.
Yeah, we're live. You gotta be careful now.
Yeah. So, anyways, that project is on hold for all intents and purposes. It's on hold for the foreseeable future.
Yeah,
Shame.
and that big scoop we have coming up in a week or two about Google Glass 3.0. Oh shoot! Oh, we're live. Crap.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have anyone listening yet, but I guess we should just start the show, and whoever comes.
Yes.
Welcome back to Alphabet Scoop. This is episode 96, and today we're going to experiment with something a little bit different. We're going to have a shorter show. I think we're aiming for 30 minutes or less, and I think we're going to try this format on weeks where the news is a little slower than usual, where we don't exactly have an hour's worth of content to talk about, and we don't really want to bore you with long, dragged-out pontificating. And so this week, we're going to spend the majority of our time talking about a very, I guess...
Radical. It's radical. For Google, at least.
That's a good word. A radical announcement. Radical change that's happening to Google's arguably most important user-facing product.
Yeah. Gmail.
Which Gmail. That's obviously Gmail. So what was the... do you think that Google was intending to announce this week, or do you think this was an intent? Oh. This was a we have to announce it now that it's leaked type of situation?
Yeah, well, ideally they would have wanted to launch it next week at week 2 of Google Cloud Next on Air, which is the enterprise conference. The topic of week 2 was supposed to be productivity and collaboration. But on, what was this? On the 3 days ago, overnight, somebody was able to get the screenshots. They were somehow able to get the sessions that Google was going to present on next week, and where we see this new Gmail. So for some background context, we actually have been tracking this for several months now. The Gmail for Android was telegraphing Google Chat and Google Meet coming into the main Gmail mobile app. So we have been expecting this on mobile, on Android and iOS. So let's start with those mobile platforms. It's actually a bit easier. So Google, last month, they already announced that Google Meet is coming to Gmail with a new bottom bar and a separate tab. So we all have our thoughts on that. It's rolling out now to iOS, and you can turn it off mercifully. You can turn it off and you continue using Gmail. But let's go in with that vision of having Meet in the bottom bar. It only made sense if Google were to add more apps. So that's what they did. So you have a tab, a section for Google Chat, where you get one-to-one conversations and group messaging with your coworkers. This is primarily enterprise focused as of now, but we'll dive more into that in a bit. And there's this Rooms tab, which is the direct competitor to Slack and Microsoft Teams for Google. They supercharged this feature where this is meant for, like, if you have a project or the team you're in, you make a room and you share files, you share tasks, you can assign to people, you can do all that on mobile. So Gmail, if you're a G Suite customer, if you use it for work, Google wants you to use the Gmail mobile app as the one app for all your communication.
I'm curious. Is Rooms? So I guess it's probably a question that a lot of people are curious about. Is Rooms a new app, or is Rooms kind of a skin over an existing app? Is Rooms kind of an extension of Chat? um, or another product that Google already has, or is this something brand new?
So the way I would describe it is Google spun out Rooms out of Google Chat. Google Chat always had Rooms, and this was the big thing. But before this week, everybody just started as a larger as a group chat. But Google like supercharged it this week and really spun it out into its own section, into its own. Honestly, I would say its own app-like thing. Like
Yeah, even though
Rooms,
there's not actually a third-party app that you can download that is for Rooms, but
no,
it is basically chat has been split into two, right? Like
yeah,
previous to today, the Rooms experience would have been in the Google Chat app itself.
mm-hmm.
And now they're both side by side, and now Google Chat is actually more probably more familiar to people who have used Google account chat like GChat or Hangouts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's funny because everybody wanted Google to have a solid messaging solution, but in Google's mind, chat is almost it seems minor, honestly, in the context of what they announce. They want their future of productivity to be Rooms, to be to be the one place where you do all your work. And it's honestly it's quite interesting what they're putting importance in. Like it's not messaging, but it's this joint productivity thing.
Yeah. So would you say this is a there's a lot of I guess conversation about, okay, well, Google's going after so and so. Every time Google launches
Every
anything,
time.
there's Google going after somebody. Somebody's being chased down, and I think the most obvious. I mean, just a week or two ago, when Google announced that the Meet tab was going to be added to Gmail in both Android and iOS apps, I got that in Gmail for iOS actually this week. With you can actually see, even though this screenshot you see on the screen, this is resembling the new Gmail experience for G Suite users with all 4 tabs. It's basically the same thing for consumers. The only difference is that the chat and Rooms functionality hasn't been added in yet. So that seemed like a definite, well, COVID's happening and Zoom has taken off and Google Meet has grown exponentially, but still to some degree felt like it's been left behind. And it seemed like Google was with Meet trying to just stick a little thing in the Gmail app and say, hey, maybe you could use our video service and not that other one that starts with the letter Z. That's what it seemed like to me, and probably to most people who are going to see that button appear in their app for the next few weeks. But this is a connected but different initiative that seems to be Google's take on of both Zoom and Slack kind of at the same time. Chat and Rooms being in the Gmail app is definitely a threat to Slack. For people that haven't already, I guess, decided on Slack as their one-stop work chat organization, task manager, everything app, I can see this being a very compelling thing, especially if it's placed front and center in the Gmail app. For everybody,
which everybody has on their home screen if you're working.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that Google would choose. I mean, what do you think about Google? We can talk about this real quick. What do you think about Google choosing the Gmail app? Because this could have, it could have easily been another. Google could have introduced an app called Google Work, and in that app, they could have integrated Gmail and Google Chat and Rooms and Google Meet and other things for that matter. But instead, they decided to effectively turn Gmail into the one size fits all, one stop shop. What do you think about that? Do you think that people are going to appreciate that, or is that going to feel intrusive on an app that they know and use every day as an email client?
So the real complicated thing about enterprise, unlike consumers, is that it's the consumer, the employee does not decide what service they use. It's the admin, it's the company, it's the IT admin, the sysadmin, your superiors that decide it. So the reason Google put everything in Gmail is very clear. They want to boost adoption of Google Chat and Google Meet, which Google Meet is popular, but I'm not sure how Google Chat adoption has been. If it's seen similar growth, I really do doubt that. So it's clear why Google did this. They want you to start using chat rooms and Meet. So it's compelling for enterprise, for businesses to just pay one service to give your employees tools. That's definitely a sell for them.
Definitely. But what about people that are already so fragmented? I mean, I think I use us as a perfect example. We obviously use Google Docs to share, and even for the planning for the show, we use Google Docs, and we all use G Suite, Gmail for our company email. But we're very heavily in Slack, and I think for the most part use Slack video calls or maybe Zoom or Google Meet here and there. It's kind of a mixed bag on the video conferencing front, but I mean, for us, I just see this is our webmaster going to have control over enabling or disabling these tabs in our email app and basically say like, oh, we're just going to stick with Slack and not use Rooms, or is all of this stuff going to be added to our Gmail app overnight and we're not going to have any control over that? Is there any?
I'm pretty sure you're going to have control over it, because otherwise that would be a real cluster. Like, again, you can only turn off Meet, but you absolutely should have a way to turn off chat and Rooms. Otherwise, it's going to be so disruptive.
Definitely.
But the question is, let's take us as an example. Would we switch to Google Chat? I
don't think so. I mean, only because we're so heavily entrenched in Slack.
Yeah, and I'm sure
that the offering is worse or better, but
yeah, and I'm sure that's going to be frankly, that's going to be the answer in most businesses around the world. It's where the companies are going to still keep paying for Gmail, but we're also going to keep paying for Slack, and that's how the cookie crumbles in terms of Gmail. It's Gmail on mobile. This new Gmail on mobile is just to centralize everything. I think the next thing, the next compelling thing, the more compelling thing that might get people to switch over is what they're doing on the web, which Gmail on the web, which honestly I didn't expect either. I didn't expect that what they were doing on mobile to go on the web, the Gmail web app, but here we are. And basically they are doing a similar revamp where they're adding chat, Meet, and Rooms to the left-hand sidebar. And here the big focus is on what you can do with Rooms. So if you're joining us on the video podcast on YouTube, you can see there's a left column for chat. That's your regular Rooms chat. That's just talking, that's texting, that's whatever. And then you can see all your files and you can see all your shared tasks for that room. But the very big thing that Google is doing is they're letting you open a Google Docs or Google Sheets or Google Slides in the rest of the screen.
And
I think for teams that are, no, I mean, not all teams work on presentations. Like we really don't work in shared documents. But for those team-based, project-based kind of things, I think this might be a very attractive. Google's big thing is they don't want you to have to keep switching to do stuff. And I think they're offering something quite compelling here.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I agree with you that it's weird, or not weird, but interesting that they are taking all these changes over to the web, and not only taking them over to the web, but they're doubling down and they're really making Gmail the central hub, but for all of the work related applications. And in fact, it's kind of a pretty big shift, because up until now, I mean, if you are a G Suite user and you're logged into your Gmail account, it's primarily what you're doing every day or all day. If you're using other Google apps, is you're clicking that application drop down, I guess, up in the top corner, which lets you quickly switch between Drive and Docs and Sheets and Gmail and all of Google's other, products, Google Chat, Google Meet. And kind of having to switch back and forth with Gmail. And really what this does is it gives you a dashboard for pretty much all of that, all in Gmail.
A dashboard, yes.
Yeah, to me, it feels like a little bit of a, obviously all those other independent apps are still going to exist. So if you want all of every, tool that you need to use to edit your Google Doc, you'll have to go over to proper Google Docs, but you'll be able to access, edit, and view pretty much everything, all within Gmail, which to me instinctively, I mean, I can see that being such a sell and a benefit to so many people who are already using all of these services. At the same time, it feels like one of those situations where Google is dumping everything in one place to try and share users across applications, to try and cross promote its own services, which I totally understand why that makes sense. But for those that use Gmail as solely a dedicated Gmail client, and using Gmail is for them, the purpose of it is using it as Gmail, I could easily see how this could become overwhelming or bloated or just kind of, just visually cluttered, and it might frustrate some people. I mean, I could see for us, especially, I mean, we're kind of a good example of maybe we're not that bothered by it, but we also pretty much generally use Gmail solely as an email client. And so, like you said, we'll probably be able to disable and enable and customize our experience, because obviously we're paying for G Suite, but I don't know. I could see it feeling cluttered if you don't.
Yeah,
I'm more worried about the mobile app, though. Like, all of this stuff is like fundamentally being built into the mobile app, and so at what point? I mean, at what point do you get a situation like, I don't know, like Hangouts, where it feels like it's kind of a lot of different services and a lot of products in one, and then Google feels that, and then they decide, oh, well, we just need to focus on individual products, and we need to launch Google Allo, which is going to be purely a messaging service, and we need to launch Google Duo, which is going to fundamentally get video calling right. And then it's like, it feels like there's this constant ebb and flow of Google mashing things together and then tearing them apart whenever they get bloated. And
yeah,
that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying it's a little bit concerning from that perspective.
I'm actually more concerned about the web than the mobile experience. I think the mobile experience is limiting enough that people can wrap their head around there being 4 feeds at the bottom of their screen. I think people are going to get that mostly, but the web thing, it's so they're not done building this out. They also want to add picture and picture meet calling. It's not coming yet, but they say that in what's launching this year, that video calling is not going to be there just like that yet. But they want to build so much stuff in so that you can only need to use this one app. And honestly, it feels like I apologize, like a wave, don't you think? A Google wave of productivity and services. But compared to that wave in the early 2000s, which was it was a more unrefined version of Slack, where Wave was a communication tool, where you could do a lot of stuff, but it was very unrefined, and it was like hedging on so many up and coming web technologies in the early 2000s that people simply didn't understand what Wave was. Google touted it as this future communication collaboration tool, but nobody understood it. But I think like 15 years later, 10 years later, people know what communication and collaboration is online on the internet. And I think by people being so familiar with chatting, with what a Google Doc is, with a Meet call, with email, I think this is a proper take on Wave that people are finally ready for.
Yeah, well, for most of our listeners today, they're all consumers and not, well, for the most part, consumers who are using the Gmail consumer app and have now seen the Meet option be added.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that where do you think we're going with this for consumers? Do you think that I guess before we move on to the next topic, like, do you think that the chat and rooms sections, or at least the chat section maybe, are going to be added to the Gmail app, and the Gmail app is going to become Google's new home on mobile for consumers too?
Oh, that is such a tough question. That dates back, that we have to start addressing by talking about classic Hangouts, and that's still being something that consumers use, and that Google plans on eventually killing the consumers and giving them a quote unquote free version of Google Chat. So if they're going in that direction and they already have this work for business customers, I think that the consumer version would look like, as you were saying, it would look like a mail, chat, and Meet with no rooms, because I don't think rooms would make sense for regular people. At most, they just want a good conversation, which they can have in chat.
Yep. I think you're right. I think that's exactly the direction they're going. I think that Google Chat is effectively going to become what Hangouts, which Google said on the record after I reported that it was going to be shut down, would be upgraded, so to speak, to Hangouts Meet and Hangouts Chat, which now have been rebranded to Google Meet and Google Chat. And now Google is putting Google Meet and Google Chat in the Gmail app for enterprise. And so it seems like the logical next step in this unfortunate series of events is that we'd come full circle, and the Gmail mobile app would just have Google Chat, and Google will migrate all of the old Hangouts messages over to Google Chat, and there will be a new fundamental underlying technology here, but it's effectively going to be we're going to finish where we started, basically.
I do have to ask you, as the reporter of Hangouts, is this where you saw it ending? In Gmail?
No. I mean, at the time, to be quite honest, at the time, my thought was that Allo was going to stick around. So.
Yeah.
So obviously that was very wrong. But anyways, that's, for those that haven't been following, that's the big Gmail news. And we're going to continue talking about this in the coming weeks. Obviously, Abner and I are both G Suite users, so we're going to be using it to some degree. Personally, I'm sure we'll probably ask for Seth to enable the chat and all these other the rooms functionality and all this stuff. And so we'll be able actually to try it out for ourselves and use it as a backup for whenever Slack goes down.
Isn't that the sad thing? Relegate to the backup status, which I'm sure Google will still take as like a starting point, but it's definitely, it's
actually, I mean, as a backup, it's probably going to be pretty nice to have. So
yeah, okay.
Organization wide even. So so that's that. I guess before we wrap up the show for the week, like I said, we're going to try and run this show only 30 minutes. Let's talk a little bit briefly about Google Pixel and some Google Store stuff. I guess first we can start with the Google Pixel 4a, which, for those that don't know, Google leaked it this week. And it was already very much leaked. I mean, I was reporting on Google Pixel 4a back in, I don't know, March or April. Before it was originally going to be announced at Google I/O 2020. And actually, that's a good segue into what I was going to talk about here, which was Google accidentally leaked the Pixel 4a on the Google Store. And in the screenshot, in that render, is which date? May 11th. I thought it was 12th. Whatever, doesn't
May
matter.
12th,
It,
yes.
it was whatever the first day of Google I/O 2020 was originally scheduled for. That's the date showing on the screenshot or on the display in this leaked Pixel 4a, which for all intents and purposes confirms that Google was originally going to announce this phone at Google I/O. Obviously did not, but they did a major Google Store update this past week, and with it, apparently a couple different stores. I think it was Canadian French, Canadian English, maybe a couple others. That there was a slide, a carousel of products, and one was for Google Wi-Fi. And instead of Google Wi-Fi, there was just a straight up render of Pixel 4a in all of its glory, with a black build and a bright green lock button. So we can say for pretty much for sure that this just black model is going to be, assumably just black, is going to be one of the options for. Well, maybe not just black, because previous just blacks have not had a colored power button. Is that correct? They've been truly just black. So maybe this will not be a just black. Maybe this will be, I don't know, mint chocolate chip or something.
Yeah, the mint is a very nice touch. I am very impressed with the bezel. We've of course seen the device, but we haven't seen very high resolution shots, the official renders, until today. And it looks good. You can barely tell it's a plastic casing on the back.
Yeah, I think it's going to be similar to Pixel 3a in that way. The Pixel 3a, as cheap as a build as it is, it feels very nice.
Very nice.
Props to Google for that. We can assume at this point the same thing is going to happen with Pixel 4a. If you want to hear more about Pixel 4a, you should listen to last week's show. We did a deep dive into Google's own leaking of the Pixel 4a, Pixel 4a 5G, and Pixel 5 names alongside their code names and everything that all means. So definitely be sure to head over to your favorite podcasting app or whatever and find last week's episode, because we dove into that for about an hour. So if you want to hear more, that's where you need to go. And finally, for this week, Google's running this interesting sale, and they're kind of personifying all of their products. What's up with that?
Yeah, they hired a big talent to do a month of daily specials with Fred Armisen of SNL, Portlandia, and Documentary Now fame to play skits, to play characters. He plays all the characters. As
it sounds really cheap.
As the person that plays a person who uses Google Assistant and Nest products and Google products in just videos and finding hilarious ways to showcase everything. So they teased it as something special over the weekend, and what it ended up being is just deals. They're okay deals, I think. It's just for the US. It runs for a month. There's a new one every day. We don't know if it covers the weekends, but yeah, it's like $75 off a 2-pack of Nest Hub Max. They're really bundling the Nest Hub with everything, with the Nest Hello video doorbell. They had some Nest Mini Speak. The Nest Mini was sold as a 2-pack and discounted. So it's really it's interesting what they're doing. I guess the going theory would be that nobody is buying things, and right now there's been a slump given what's happening. So they're doing a sale on the US store.
Know what's happening? What's happening, Abner? I don't know what you're talking about.
What's happening is
the world's burning.
The world's burning. But I think everybody would think it's better if the world was burning and you found out about it over slightly faster Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so, or if you could, I love how they actually had like little nods to the world burning in this in this promo. Like they gave all of these products. For those that haven't checked it out, you should go look at store.com.
It's funny. It's good. It's like good advertising.
They're seriously doubling down on this whole like helpful Google thing, because they're literally assigning every Google product some tangible personification action that they can actually do for you. They're calling the Nest thermostat the tree hugger, which I guess that's an allusion to its eco mode, savings of energy. Package protector, the Nest Hello. Stream machine, bird spotter, the Nest Cam IQ. I've never spotted a bird in a Nest Cam IQ outdoor. So I don't know what that one's talking about. I've had an Nest Cam IQ outdoor for 2 years, and I've never seen a single bird on it. Probably because it's pointed down at the ground and not up at the sky. So I don't know if that might have something to do with it. The remote door locker, that one kind of feels a little lame. The lag buster, the one I love the most is the Nest Bangs trimmer, which is one of very much a stretch. But
Yes.
two, it is an allusion to the fact that everyone is doing their own haircuts at home right now. But
Totally.
Bangs
Yeah.
trimmer is the suggestion here that you're using your Nest to watch YouTube videos about how to cut bangs? Is that what it's trying to say? Seems very specific. Can't you
Yeah.
use any device?
I'm just concerned about the fact that people cutting their own hair do not have like 5 different tabs open on Chrome, and they're taking notes and they're screenshotting parts of the video. I'm just concerned that that's not everybody's outlook or preparation to cutting their own hair. But I digress.
Also, can we talk about how much better these deals could have been if they didn't hire Fred Armisen of Portlandia fame? Like, they could have given everything away for free. Everything that they have on sale, they could have just given it away for free if they hadn't hired Fred.
Fred Armisen is delightful, and I will defend him tooth and nail.
I like Fred. That's not what I'm saying.
But
I'm saying some of these deals are really lame. Like day one was like 2 Google Home Minis and like $20 off or something like that. Like what?
Yeah.
Like you can get them for free on every corner, and you're trying to get me to buy them on sale just because Fred Armisen said so. Save $20 on a Nest Mini 2-pack. Come on, like Google should be paying me to take Nest Minis off their hands. Quite frankly.
Oh man, they need a funny man to get people interested. No, I totally agree with you. They could have probably done better deals. Some of the deals aren't that good.
Yeah, and where's the Nest speaker or the Nest whatever it's called? This new Nest, a Google Home Max Mini. That's what I like to call it. Google Home Max Mini needs to launch. I mean, Google showed off an image of it, and the thing's been leaked completely by more people than just us. And they're running a huge promo on the Google Store, and they're not selling the darn thing. I don't understand.
Yeah, why are they doing this? Are they trying to raise awareness of their brand before they announce, like before their hardware event in, I don't know, in October or earlier? Is that what they're doing?
It's probably a combination of a lot of things. I think there's probably a whole, like, the stars are aligning situation here. A lot of these Nest products are getting old. It's time for Nest refreshes of a lot of these products. Nest Thermostat E was a couple years ago. Nest Cam IQ was a few years ago. Nest Hello even was a year or 2 ago, right? And Nest Protect is what, 5 years now?
Yeah.
The first gen Nest Protect, I think, goes farther back than that. Even the next, there has not been a significant Nest smart home product announced in a long time, and I think it's time, especially with them. They obviously care about it because they're putting Nest as the center of their branding. So I think it's time for Google to announce a lot of new Nest hardware. In fact, I didn't think about this till just now, but if you know anything about that, you know my email. I have not heard anything about new Nest smart home stuff other than the Nest.
Nikkei had that one report last year or 2 years ago that there was going to be a new Nest Cam, and that never happened.
Yeah. So yeah, I think part of it might be that a lot of these products are getting old and they need to clear some stock for some coming refresh. Even if it's next year, I think it's probably time to start clearing some of these products. And another factor is COVID, and people are at home, and so they're much more likely to be impulse buying things if they have money. And another factor is, probably some promotional aspect for coming announcements for Made by Google in a month or two, starting with the Pixel 4a or whatever happens first. So yeah, I think it's probably just a combination of things that have made this an obvious opportunity. Yeah, that's probably what I'd say. Probably not any one thing.
It's just weird that it's just the US. That's the thing that strikes me as being weird and a miss. but
Well, if the US gets the Google Store deals, the rest of the not US all got the Pixel Buds this week, so we can call it even.
yes. Yeah. The Pixel Buds, they're in 9 countries. I don't think they released them in Japan yet, but they're here. And if you've been waiting for colors, they are coming next month, finally.
And if you're waiting on the Pixel 4a, we don't have anything to tell you because we're waiting for it just like you are.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just the question I see the most in the comments section right now. And I think on that note, we're going to wrap up the show. It's been a 35 minutes. We've tried this week to do a little briefer of a show to kind of cover one big topic that we had to talk about, which in this case was Gmail, and kind of touch on a few other minor things. Let us know what you think about that format. Be sure to comment in the comments over at 95 Google for this show. Maybe just drop a comment here on YouTube, or let us know. I mean, give us reviews. Give us 5 stars in Apple Podcasts. That'd be great. We really need some more visibility over there. Not that Apple Podcast users are the most perfect audience for a podcast about Google products deep in the weeds, but it'd be great nonetheless. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We will see you next week. And as usual, you can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, like I mentioned, Pocket Casts, Google Podcasts, and you can download it directly on 95google.com if I remember to upload it, which it's uncertain if I will. But yeah, thanks for tuning in as always. I really appreciate Abner for joining me and basically hosting the show. He has pretty much hosted the show for a few months now. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.